Mid-Southern California, Area 9 and District 17. We've been working on this for a couple of months, joint efforts to put this together for you guys. So what we have is we have some guest speakers from the General Service Office, speakers from Area 9, local AA members who are going to share their experience during this pandemic. It's going to be an awesome evening. It's going to be full of information. It's just going to be a lot of fun. So John has already said and posted a few times that questions are absolutely important, right? So if you have a question, go ahead and post your question in the chat room, and there will be the questions will be asked after the speaker is done. So the questions will be towards each speaker as they come up, right? So send them to the chat room. It's important that we do this. Every speaker is going to have enough time to do their speak, and then answer some questions that we may have. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that. A little bit of a word about anonymity. If your last name is your Zoom name and you are uncomfortable with others seeing that, you may change it to your first name and last initial. Looks like everybody's on board with that already. Everybody kind of knows. If you're uncomfortable with that, you can rename it, change it, make it whatever you'd like to do. We ask that you not take a screenshot of the attendees, as this would be like taking a group photo at a meeting, right? So we don't take screenshots. We will be recording audio only, no video. Okay, just so everybody knows that. A copy of the recording will be available afterward if you are interested. All right, so we got a lot to do tonight, and the first thing we're going to do is I have asked Angie to read the AA preamble. Angie. Angie, are you out there? Okay.
Can you hear me?
There you go, yes. Go for it.
Okay, I have to switch to another screen. Hang on one second. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Angie, alcoholic.
Hey, Angie.
AA Preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and to help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety.
Awesome. Thank you, Angie, very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started, man. So again, I'm just going to say I'm super duper excited about tonight. There's going to be a lot of information. We've got a lot of great speakers tonight, and so we got a lot going on. So the first speaker that we have tonight, the one that's going to get us started, his name is Jeff W. He's a staff member at the General Service Office, and he's currently the Group Services Coordinator and Liaison with Intergroup Central Offices. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm Jeff. I'm an alcoholic.
Jeff.
And for those of you not familiar with our office, there are about 12 of us who are AA members and who work on different assignments. Irene, who is also here tonight, works on the accessibilities and treatment assignment, and I work on group services. So I had the pleasure of actually being in California last year around this time for a Unity Forum in Area 5 that was wonderful, and was along the same lines of what you're doing now, where, in that case, it was areas working together with H&I and intergroups and linguistic districts, and a whole weekend of unity. And it's exactly what you're doing too, with the area or the district and the intergroup working together to put on an event like this. So it's really nice to see this, because this is exactly what we need right now. There certainly is a tendency sometimes when we go through tough situations to be fearful, and then unity goes out the window, and you get, blaming, or you get, kind of just detachment or isolation. As an alcoholic, at least, that's where I go sometimes. So it's really nice to see that you've got the antidote of that working here tonight. So I talked to John about how I would briefly tell you kind of some of the things that are going on at the office as a result of COVID. Basically, since the GSO office started, which was, a little office in Newark, New Jersey around 1938, 39, when they were writing the big book, basically, we haven't closed since then. There's always been an office open. And so this was unprecedented. We are still open in a virtual sense, but it's the first time we've had to close our doors since then. And it was very sudden, as we all know, middle of March, all of a sudden in New York, the whole city kind of closed down. Our office had to close, and our workforce wasn't necessarily equipped to work from home. Our IT director talked about how she was trying to purchase laptops, and they were kind of like toilet paper, the thing you just could not get, the business equivalent of that. But somehow they managed to get us all set up. Some of the IT staff actually went to people's houses throughout, New York and New Jersey to get them set up with a printer and, make sure their Wi-Fi was working, et cetera. And we've been working from home ever since. And we don't know when that will end, but it's not going to end before Labor Day, and probably a fair amount afterwards, too. It's just going to be a real adjustment getting back to an in-person office. We have this ERP system, which you may have heard about. We transitioned to it back in August of last year, and it's basically a cloud-based system for unifying business operations. And it's been a very difficult transition. It's something we needed to do, but there have been a lot of difficulties with it, cost overruns, complications. If there's something that's not happening in terms of you getting, your district or your group getting, say, an acknowledgement of contributions or other things like that, it's probably because we're still working it out on ERP. We were hoping to have the My Portal way in for registrars by now, but again, it's kind of the complications of ERP. But thank goodness we took that step back in August of last year, because we would not be able to operate as a virtual office if we hadn't done that last year. So for all of its warts, the ERP system has actually kind of come through for us. And that may be something that's totally irrelevant, but I thought I'd throw it in case you hear someone swearing about NetSuite or ERP. There was a sort of a bright side to it. From the first, there were a lot of really difficult decisions to be made. One of them was, do we go forward with the international convention or not? And eventually we had to decide no. Which was a real heartbreak, because Detroit had bent over backwards to be a host city, and a lot of preparations were made. Julio, who is one of the staff members that you may know, was working just night and day, kind of trying to get the whole, international convention coordinated and set up. And then all of a sudden it's like, now you have to take it all apart again. And in addition to kind of dismantling that and trying to work with vendors to get partial refunds, et cetera, make sure that the attendees got their refunds. Julio was also charged with trying to come up with a kind of virtual international convention, and he did a wonderful job along with different departments in our office. And it's operating from now, beginning of July until the end of July. It's a virtual international conference, and it has, a lot of speakers, some really interesting talks by AA old-timers, by friends of AA. There's a great talk by a woman who was the daughter of Ruth Hawk, who was Bill's first secretary at that office in Newark, New Jersey. And she gives a wonderful talk about her mother and the history of AA, and how her mother may not have realized how much she meant to our fellowship, but with her newly sober daughter, they went to the International Convention in Montreal in 1985, and they announced Ruth Hawk. She was the non-alcoholic secretary of Bill, and the place, there was a standing ovation for several minutes, and she describes it beautifully in this talk. There are several other talks from friends of AA that are really interesting to see how professionals have, been able to work with AA. So that was kind of the consolation prize that, yes, we had to miss the international convention, but this is available. And if you go to the homepage of AA.org, look in the What's New section, or just look for the red convertible and click on that. It'll take you to a menu, and then you can see all of the different features that are part of this microsite that Julio put together. Another big decision was the General Service Conference. What do we do? We, decided it would be a virtual, eventually the conference, the trustees decided it would be a virtual conference, and then we had to figure out how on earth to do that. And Ed may talk about that a little bit in his part of this program. I'll just say, from our standpoint, we didn't know, do we hire some big expensive company to put on a big event? Well, what it turned out to be was several alcoholic members who were Zoom techs and just generally technically talented, and they helped us put together this 4 days of meetings and work out how we could do elections and how we could, kind of operate completely within Zoom to be able to have the best conference we could have in a virtual way. And it was because AA members, showed up with their particular talents, and they kept playing Motown music during the breaks, which was exactly what everybody needed, to kind of break things up and keep the mood up. And also Irene did a little virtual party music marathon for us one night too, which was a lot of fun. So, as far as day-to-day goes, our mailroom is still operating. Actually, the head of the mailroom basically masks up and gloves up and goes to the post office, and he brings the hundreds of pieces of mail, and he brings them into his apartment in the Bronx, and he sprays them with sanitizer, and then after a couple of hours, he starts routing them. And we've still been receiving hundreds of letters from inmates throughout the U.S. and Canada, and answering them, because our email or our mailroom department is still functioning as best they can. We're also shipping literature, and that's kind of important because our literature sales were way down in April and May, and that's part of what funds our services. So we just want people to know that, yes, you can still buy AA literature and get it shipped to you. There's, only a minor delay with that. There's even a special going on right now where it's 10% off of any version of the big book in, any form or format, even ASL. So we're just trying to remind members that we're still here, we're still shipping literature. And, Grapevine did a wonderful thing too. What they did was basically unlock all their issues from January through July, so that members could just go to the website and read the magazine for free. And they did some wonderful issues. I don't know if you can see this. This is one of the issues they did, which is No Matter What, and it has a lot of stories about how members are coping with the pandemic right now. Some beautiful stories. And, the Grapevine sharing is just, for me, it's just so great, member to member kind of, and giving me this wider scope of what's going on in the US and Canada. So, Grapevine and Lavinia. Irene is actually the former Lavinia editor, so she may want to speak about that as well. But both Grapevine and Lavinia were showing up to make sure that content was there for members who couldn't access meetings, or in addition to being able to go to meetings. Our PI desk was very busy because we had a lot of requests from the press about like what's AA doing now that you can't have meetings in person. And it was very important to get a message out to them. And our PI coordinator, Racy, did a wonderful job. The way she phrased it was along the lines of basically AA is not a place, you know, it's principles and it's a spirit. So even though we don't have those places to meet, we're meeting online and we're still supporting each other and we're doing what we need to do to stay sober. And, you know, as I've seen in my home group, there are people who've come in who've never been to a face-to-face meeting now, and they are, you know, they're staying sober. Can't wait to meet them and give them a hug, you know, eventually. So, you know, Meeting Guide has also been working very hard. The app, which is now based in our office, to be able to have innovations that make listing meetings a little more kind of so you can understand what's closed, what's open, perhaps listing some credentials. If there are questions about that, I may be able to help you or refer you to app support at our office. And, you know, I'll just end with a quote from one of our trustees who, there's a wonderful article, again, in the What's New section on AA.org, that was in box 459 recently about our office moving, you know, remotely, how we've been doing that with lots of the stories that I'm kind of recounting and many others in much more detail. And they quote Bo B., who is one of our trustees, I really loved what he said about how we see this quilt of people in the gallery view of Zoom, and everyone's in their own homes, and the diversity of members is very clear, and there is a wall between us, but yet not. When meetings end with a closing prayer, it sounds awful and ragged, but he said, I love it. He said he feels, you know, touched and that it's a spiritual thing. And he says at the end of the article, I'm not worried about AA being forever changed by this in terms of who we are as people and what we value the most, carrying the message and helping each other. AA thrives in uncertainty. When times are soft and comfortable, we fight about comma placement. In times of trouble, people stand up and show up and say, give me a bucket and a shovel. And that's what I've noticed from intergroups and from districts and areas and members. It's really been inspiring. So I hope that was a helpful recount of what's been going on at our office. And I'm happy to answer any short questions before we move on in the program.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff, very much. That was phenomenal. So I'm sure there are plenty of questions. Martin, what do we got?
Okay, first question. We heard complaints that from people that about the conference being changed from 10 days to 4 days, and we were wondering what drove that decision.
That's a great question. It actually is usually 7 days. Part of it was we had never done this before, and part of it was just trying to organize that many days of a conference. We realized pretty early on that we couldn't pull it off in the time frame that we had originally allotted in April, and then it meant, well, that means that the people who have jobs are going to have to take how much time off that they hadn't already taken as vacation time. So that was part of the consideration, whereas the way we did it with a Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday meant that people weren't necessarily having to take that many days off. But you know, as Bo also said, basically we were building the plane while we were flying it. So we really didn't know how it was going to turn out and whether it was going to be horrible for 4 straight days and that nobody would have wanted 7 days. Another thing we confronted that we didn't really think about was time zones. We had people from Hawaii to Newfoundland. So that really shortened the amount of time that we could meet together from like basically 11 a.m. to 6 or 7 p.m. in order to not be, you know, going too late at either end. It was a challenge. I know we learned a lot doing it, and I'm sure we would do it differently knowing what we know. I think we did the best we could, but it's definitely understandable that people felt like they wanted more. It would have been great to be able to do more of AA's business, but we did a lot of essential business, and for that, I'm grateful.
Another question, how have the seventh tradition contributions been, and is there anything we can do to help?
That's a wonderful question too. Thank you for whoever submitted that. In April and May, I think they were way down contributions because, and there is a video, again, on what's new in AA.org. There's a video on the seventh tradition, a letter from the general manager, and then a video from the treasurer of the General Service Board, and she gives some facts and figures about what the actual contributions were in comparison to what they usually are. I think a lot of, there were a lot of new online groups that had never practiced passing the virtual basket. We did put out a service piece about it. There were a lot of other guides that appeared on the internet, and eventually I think groups got more of an understanding about how to do that. And in the months of June and July, we have seen contributions come back big time, and we really appreciate it. So, if that could continue, that would be great. We are still in a hole because the literature sales have not increased as much, but AA members are answering the call, which is beautiful, and again, that video will give you more detail on that. But just to say that we are in a bit of a hole, but with the help of members, we're getting out of it. And intergroup central offices need that help as well. And the treasurer of the General Service Board mentions them. Don't forget to stay local with contributions as well as to help us.
Okay, I have another one. How can groups maintain unity with Zoom and online meetings?
Well, that's a huge one, and I hope actually the subsequent presenters will be filling in the blanks on that. I have seen, because I'm on group services, groups working to try to make sure that whatever format they're going to, whether it's just they're staying with online because that makes the meetings more accessible for those who maybe are compromised immune system wise, or for some reason can't go to in-person meetings once they reopen. They're staying with the online meetings, or they're opening face-to-face, but maybe having a hybrid element. There is some wonderful sharing, if any of you are familiar with the Technology and AA Forum. It's a forum of a lot of AA members who are very tech savvy. It's for AA members, so you can just ask for a password and they will let you in. It's TIAA.org, something like that, although that might be the investment company. But if you Google that enough times, you'll find it. And there have been some great sharing about actually how people are setting up hybrid meetings, like the technology that they're using. Sometimes it's as simple as a phone. Other times, it's a bigger meeting and they have to, it's a little more complicated. But I think if groups keep in mind that they don't want to make it the online people versus the in-person people, but they want to make it all of us working together to make sure the meeting, the group is as accessible as possible, that's a great starting place. And there are also some wonderful guides about reopening on the San Francisco Intergroup's website, the Baltimore Intergroup's website. Area 48 has a wonderful reopening ad hoc committee report. But I'm looking forward to hearing more about that from the rest of the speakers tonight.
Last one. What is your biggest area of concern, and is it something that the members can help with?
Well, another great question. I'm less concerned because for the last few months I've been seeing that even under any conditions, AA members pull together. They remember, what keeps us together is more important than what might divide us. I do hear in some parts of the country that there is tension between intergroups and districts or areas, and I wish that could be resolved and that we could all cooperate together, because I see intergroups as being essential. In the history of intergroups starting in the 40s, they've been just right at the core of AA. They're the front lines. They're the people, making sure the people, newcomers, know where to go to meetings and that first contact point. And, we all need to work together to make sure that we're keeping that arch, you know, that new members can come, keeping that as wide as possible. So I guess, you know, as long as we're doing that, I don't think we have anything to worry about.
Awesome. Phenomenal. Thank you again, Jeff, for your time. Thank you for your service. Very inspiring message, you know. That's what we're doing tonight. We're trying, you know, we're getting all those ideas together. We have some great speakers with a lot of great information. They're going to help us pass that information on so that we can stay unified. Thank you again, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay, awesome. Now, next we have a young lady named Tiffany. She is going to discuss with us health and safety in Alcoholics Anonymous. Hello, Tiffany.
Hi, guys. Tiffany, alcoholic. And thanks for being with us, Jeff. And this is amazing. Right now there's 107 people attending this. And the fact that it's a combined intergroup and GSR event makes it really cool. I don't know if I've ever attended any kind of event that was a double whammy like that. Normally they're very separate entities. So you know, this is a very cool thing that you guys have done. So I'm here to talk about health and safety. What qualifies me to speak on that a little bit is that I am a registered nurse with an extra certification in public health. I have been trained in infection control. I'm certified to work in operating rooms. I am currently in the middle of a master's degree, also in public health. And I currently work for our local county's Department of Public Health in the disease control branch, alongside who is the public health officer for the county. So that, I guess, qualified to speak on COVID a little bit. We get all of the data coming through our office, and our county has actually opened up a whole separate building where all of the bigwigs are. It's called the Emergency Operations Center, and that is where everybody is trying to come together to really like how Jeff said that we're, you know, building the airplane as we're flying it, because essentially that's what everybody in the entire world is doing with this novel virus. And the reason why it's called novel is because that means it's new. It means that we've had no, you know, our bodies have never come in contact with this virus, which makes it very, very different from something like the regular seasonal flu, influenza A or influenza B, which has been around for hundreds and thousands of years. And you know, our bodies have come into contact with it over and over throughout time, whether it was through ourselves, through our parents, through our grandparents, through something called epigenetics, which is what makes this, you know, a big deal. And while we're still figuring things out, because we're getting new information all the time on this thing. You know, when we first started out, it was like we were told to look out for the, you know, 3 symptoms. And now when I come into work, I'm screened for a dozen symptoms at this point. And chronic problems are cropping up, meaning somebody, you know, catches this illness and then it just doesn't seem to go away. Like they're still sick and it's 2-3 months later. And they're just unsure of exactly what it is affecting. They're thinking it's affecting some particular cells in the body called endothelial cells, which pretty much lines all of our organs. And so it was originally thought to just attack the lungs, but that's not true as far as we know at this point. So it's like, oh my gosh, you know, the death rate is going down, but more people are catching it. And fortunately, what we are learning is how to treat it better. So less people are dying, right? There's more people catching it, but less people dying because we have a better approach now. You know, they didn't know beforehand that if you were in the ICU on a ventilator that you needed to be put on your stomach. they have found out in the past, like 4 or 5 weeks that putting somebody on their stomach while they're on a ventilator, that they have a better outcome. And the same with some of the treatments that they're doing with some of the steroids that are decreasing in inflammation. But it's still a guessing game at this point, At this point, I think it's been about there's like 330 million Americans, right? So right now, about 10% have tested positive. So 3.4 million Americans have tested positive. 20% of those was severe enough to actually require hospitalization, which is almost 700,000 people. And I think what the officials wanted to do was, rather than have almost 700,000 people across the United States for hospitalization in a matter of 6 weeks or 8 weeks, they wanted to stagger that out, and they were calling it flattening the curve, which was some of the reasoning behind some of the closures. And so I don't know if we've done that, because I know right now, I just got off the phone with my friend who's driving down to her shift at the hospital. She's going to the COVID unit, which is full, and the ICU is full. And as of yesterday, our county's numbers is we don't have a single ICU bed available. We're not normal. Normally, maybe 70% of ICU beds are taken, and we still have a significant portion that are open. That's not the case right now. Last I checked, there was 0 beds open in ICU. And so, this is scary stuff, And at this point, just to give a little perspective, maybe 1%, there's a 1% mortality rate that's associated with the flu, meaning 1% of people who catch it will die. That's worldwide. And so right now with coronavirus, we're looking at 3 to 4%, which is a significant number. If 10% of Americans have gotten coronavirus thus far, then 3 to 4% of them, that's a big number. And the fact that we don't have a vaccine yet, this thing lives for a while on what's called a fomite, which is an inanimate object. So if it's metal or glass or wood, it lasts for 2 or 3 days. So we need to talk about, if there's going to be in-person meetings, how we're going to be decontaminating before the meeting, how we're going to contaminate after. The way we set up a meeting might have to change. Maybe we'll have to grab our own chairs when we do go back to in-person meetings. We'll have to decontaminate the room when we leave. And then there's also a question, and here's the big question, like from where I come from a background of science and a nurse, is that I'm really starting to think, with the way this virus is so successful, that I think a lot of it is airborne. Now, it's not officially considered airborne at this point, but the way that it had traveled around the world as quickly as it did, it's the only thing that makes sense. The countries that have gotten on top of this thing and have low numbers are the same countries where everyone wears a mask. So there's no coincidence there, right? There's no coincidence. The masks help, and if everyone's wearing a mask, then it certainly helps. It decreases transmissibility by like 96%. So nothing's 100%, not even condoms, but we still wear them to be careful and to protect ourselves. So think of a mask kind of like, a condom, like, let's just wear it. Let's just increase the odds of our safety, okay? It's not a big deal. I think that's about it. I'm ready to take any questions. I don't know if I contributed much to this, because we're not at the end of this thing, so but that's essentially what I know. And if anybody has anything they want to ask away. I'm ready.
Thank you, Tiffany, for your time tonight. We really appreciate it. You're awesome. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Martin has some questions for you.
Okay.
Yes, I'll ask the ones that I have so far, and then I'll check and see if any come up in the meantime. First question that was the most recent one posted. Are there stomach issues associated with the virus?
Yes. Nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Yes.
Check, check, check. Next one. Can you suggest ventilation tactics that would allow us to have indoor meetings?
Well, you know, I have a specialty in tuberculosis, which is considered an airborne virus. And so with my patients that do have active tuberculosis that are going to go home from the hospital, but they're still considered contagious, I would tell them that they need to dilute their air. And the way you do that is by opening up all the windows in the home. But during the summer when it's 100 degrees, you know, but that's my recommendation for my tuberculosis patient. We could do outdoor meetings. That's a possibility. Outdoor certainly makes it safer because there's a lot more, you know, dilution happening if you're sitting outside.
Yeah, that was the most recent question. Outdoor versus indoor transmissibility. Clearly, you're saying that outdoor it's less transmissible. Do you have an opinion on whether we're ever going to have face-to-face meetings again, and whether or not you think we should?
You know, I think that there would have to be an infection control plan put into place before something like that would occur. There should probably be a room limit as far as the amount of people, and some social distancing should be practiced. I've heard some rumors of, you know, secret meetings occurring, so that's what I would suggest to those people as well. Be smart, socially distance, continue to wear your mask, keep your hands away from your mouth, wash your hands all the time. And you know what, really probably the safest way to do in-person meetings would be to be outdoors right now, frankly. Yeah, you know, when a vaccine is available, it'll definitely make things safer, but that's of course assuming that the bulk of people will get vaccinated.
Should people attending outdoor meetings be wearing masks?
Depending on how close or far away you are, you know, 6 feet is recommended because it's reasonable, right? It's reasonable to stay 6 feet away from people, but a sneeze can travel 10 feet. If it's windy, it can travel even further. So I would wear a mask within a group of people. If I'm by myself on a hike, I'll have it in my pocket in case I meet somebody that I might end up having a conversation with. If I'm by myself, I'm not going to need it. But if I'm in with a group of people and somebody sneezes and I'm downwind from them and they've got COVID and they don't know it because they're asymptomatic or their stomach was bothering them earlier and they don't have any other symptoms, then I'm going to be safe and wear a mask.
What can AA members do to be helpful during the COVID pandemic?
I think for me, I've kind of had a motto since the beginning of this thing, which was that I'm going to do my best to be my brother and sister's keeper. You know, for me, if I catch coronavirus, I most likely will be okay. I don't really have any underlying conditions, but I moved out of my own home. I live with 2 elderly guys and I don't want to get them sick and they may not be okay, right? So I mean, I haven't even lived in my own house for 5 months. So for me, the easiest thing that you can do to protect yourself and to protect your brothers and sisters is to wear a mask.
Okay, this question has come up twice, sort of 2 different forms. Let me see if we can kind of combine it. One person sort of said something about can we decontaminate the rooms enough to not spread infections? And then the more recent form of it, yeah, can we decontaminate enough to keep AA as a whole safe? Yeah, so it might have been somebody asking the same question twice.
That is a question that has a lot of information. I would need more information to pass. Like for instance, we do surgeries in an operating theater, right? We do everything that we can to sterilize and clean it and present an aseptic area in order to open the human body and to keep microbes down. Is an operating room 100% microbe free? No, it's not. That would be impossible. So I'm not quite sure what they're asking. That's not really something that I can answer because I don't have enough information. Am I sitting can I make a room microbe free? No, I cannot. Nobody can. Not even a hospital. Can we lessen our chances of getting coronavirus? Yes, we can. And there'll be some things that we'll need to do in order to do that, which will be clean beforehand with an appropriate disinfectant, socially distance, wear a mask, and clean afterwards. And that would probably be the best we could do. Not a guarantee.
Here's a really good one. How do you suggest we safely approach someone who comes to an open meeting and refuses to wear a mask?
We're not supposed to have any opinions on outside issues, and so this is kind of, tweaking that line right there a bit. What I would say is the person who wants to wear a mask, if somebody shows up and does not want to wear one, then you have a voice and you can leave. Now, unless, there's some, unless the meeting says this is a mask only meeting, which that's a whole other topic that we're getting into now as far as AA bylaws and whatnot go, For me, rather to keep things simple, to just keep things simple, if there was somebody there refusing to wear a mask, then I would split. That's me.
Awesome. What I got, Martin?
There's one here that I like. We as AAs are bound to be of service. Can we equate masking with AA service?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because I'm not masking to just keep me safe. I'm asking to keep you safe. I'm asking to keep everybody around me safe, complete strangers, people that I know, friends and family, doesn't matter. Yes, it is definitely being of service.
Here's a longer one. Is there a thought from any of the well, we'll ask you this. We'll maybe open it up to anybody else who's got an opinion on it as well that is presenting. Is there any thought on Alano clubs or AA meetings being approved as an essential service in order to continue to have face-to-face meetings? Do we think this may
I doubt it. I doubt it.
Most of it. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just going to be honest. If churches are closed and in-person services at churches are closed, then AA meetings are, I'm going to pretty kind of equate them to, along the same kind of playing field. And I'm going to say no, I'm going to say no. I know a lot of people are having a hard time with not having face-to-face meetings. Yeah. Hard times, interesting times right now, Hopefully we can all just get it to continue to protect each other and be as available for each other as we can be in a safe way.
Awesome information, Tiffany. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your time. And hopefully some of the other presenters can talk about that too. So you're awesome, girl. Thank you very much. That was very informative. Okay, so we'll just keep on moving. Our next guest, Johnny Carson. Our next speaker is going to be Ed L., who is the Mid-Southern California Area 9 Panel 70 delegate. Welcome, Ed.
My name's Ed. I'm an alcoholic, and thank John and the intergroups and so forth for instigating this. It's a wonderful thing. I've been looking forward to it for quite a while now. My life changed significantly back in October when, as an active member of General Service and your Area 9 alternate delegate, I was not elected, but I was selected. I was pulled out of the hat, and my life changed as a result of that. So that we're in this new arena of change is just part of my sobriety. And one of the things I can share, for example, is, for years I've been in AA that I've been told to suit up and show up, but now I'm also saying that I can suit up and show up from the waist up. So I'm sitting here in a shirt and tie, but I also am barefooted in shorts. And I know during the conference that there were a lot of the delegates that described themselves as that. So there are some luxuries associated with this, but the thing that I can tell you is that my life right after it changed started changing when I started going to elections last October, and I visited probably 20 of our 24 districts in Area 9, and I got to really see the heart of Alcoholics Anonymous at the district level. And then, and I'm one of those kind of anal guys. One of the first things I had published in the Grapevine was that if I had it to do all over again, I'd overdo it all again. So I actually have a log of Zoom meetings that I've been to, and a few minutes before I joined you, I looked at that log, and my first Zoom meeting was with District 1 on March 26th, and I've been in 75 of them since. So these are not AA meetings where I'm going for sobriety at an hour at a time. These are meetings that have sometimes gone 5 or 6 hours at the area level, often for a couple of hours at the district level. Before the conference, I started Zooming with our many districts, and if you are a district that would that I've not attended, please invite me. I haven't said no to any invites, but sometimes I do get booked for more than one event in a day. Yesterday, for example, I attended a 3-hour Unity Zoom session that was wonderful, that was put on by the 4 different areas in Southern California. But I broke away for an hour, and I went up to north coast of California and joined Teddy in Area 6 for his report back to return the favor, since he had attended one of mine. And then in the evening, I attended a sponsorship 2-hour workshop. So it wasn't until this morning I realized, when I looked at those 3 things, that the first one was about unity, literally, and the second one was about recovery, and the third one was about service. And so I actually got the 3 legacies in one day. So I've been very active, and I love the opportunity. To me, the district levels are the most engaging. I've been in some of these 500 member meetings, and I've been in some 4-member meetings, with districts at that level. So so that was prior to the conference, and then of course the conference itself was not just the 4 days in May. We were told in April that our work would start as early as April 29th. So on May 2nd and 3rd, I spent 6 hours. I'm assigned to the Literature Committee, and as many of you know, of the 13 committees, we had 28 of the agenda items. And we were fairly naive to think that we would be able to present 12 of those items. And we actually had 5 in reserve that we were going to bring forward if we were given time. And then there were 11 that we weren't going to talk about because we knew that they would occupy all the time. But in spite of our naivete, when we got to the conference, we only got 2.5 of those 28 items actually through as advisory actions. We did get more through with committee considerations, and so there's that. But so, the conference this year was truncated in that respect. We had plenty of time on May 2nd and 3rd to talk about the streamlining and determining the essential agenda items that we would bring forward. I felt that on May 16th, when our committee had done all of that work in early May, that we had plenty of time in the 3 hours to be able to discuss the last minute presentations that we would bring to the floor of the conference. But where we really suffered was 45 minutes. And, I've been asked, and this is a question I would ask that's similar to the one that was asked earlier of Jeff as to why we only had 4 days. One of the related questions to that many of you might not be privy to is, why were we limited to only 45 minutes? One of the concerns is that corrections had a single agenda item, which is a recurring item that comes back to look at the workbook and the kit. And the literature committee had 28 items that dealt with everything as controversial as changing the big book and the 12 and 12. And we were both of those committees were only given 45 minutes. There was discussion that if a committee finished, say with 20 minutes, that the other 25 could be transferred over to the other committees, but we were told up front on the first day that that was not going to happen. So so it was really disconcerting that we went in there with 96 agenda items, and we only came out with 15 advisory actions. And I've talked to Kathy, who is our regional trustee, and several other past delegates, and the feeling that I'm getting from them is that probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 75 to 85% of those items might have passed as advisory actions. But I am a naive delegate. You know, I'm a panel 70 delegate, so this is my first time. The one thing that I was kind of really appreciated about myself is that when I saw that I was not going to be able to go back to New York, even though there was some disappointment, there was so much work to be done that I wasn't distracted by what I couldn't do. And my sobriety has given me this wonderful feeling of being engaged in what it is that I am doing. So there was too much to do to get too upset about what we couldn't do. And even though there was a little bit of disappointment there was so much work to go into these things. You know, I spent about 55 hours over a 5-day period, including the 4 days at the conference, being prepared for it, making sure that I had tables and all of the background information summarized and available and ready to participate. And our area has been wonderful in that respect, especially Mitchell and Ryan. Mitchell is our chair, and he gave me all of the information that I needed from all the feedback from the different districts and the groups. And then Ryan has done an exceptional job of keeping you guys informed and sending out e-blasts. And if you're not engaged, if you're not receiving emails from Area 9 and you would like to, there is a MailChimp tab on our website, which is MSCA 09AA.org. And if you click on that tab, then you will get all of the e-blasts that have come out over the last year or so, and all of the new ones as they continue to come out, just to make sure that you're informed. The one thing that I would say, so then after the conference, I've shifted gears and I've done my report backs virtually. And these things have been wonderful. I've got 176 slides that I present. And so far, it's almost become mechanical that it's between 55 and 60 minutes to get all of that information out there. All of that stuff has been posted on our website. You know, all of the advisory actions, those actions that have committee considerations, and those that have been forwarded are all on that same website. There's a confidential link that's called confidential information. And when you click on that, maybe we can have Mitchell or Ryan put the password for that. But all of the resources included in my report back are available on our website. So I intentionally go through it fairly quickly as an introduction, but we want to make sure that you've got all the resources that you need so that we can keep you as informed as possible. I continue to be available. Please continue to invite me to your district meetings. So the report backs, I've talked to so far 17 districts, actually the area once, and 16 districts, and I've got 5 more districts scheduled between now and early September. There are 3 or 4 districts in there that haven't contacted me yet. So I love this stuff. To me, the very best that Alcoholics Anonymous has to, it's not at the area level, it's really at the district level. You know, the area is an opportunity for the districts to come together, but the real work of Alcoholics Anonymous is the district. That's where we're getting, our GSRs and folks coming together, and there are monthly meetings. Every one of our districts, except for District 11, I think, is meeting on a monthly basis. And so I would encourage you to get in contact with your districts, find out about those. You do not have to be a GSR. You do not have to be a committee member, like a chair of PI or something like that. All members of Alcoholics Anonymous are encouraged. And unfortunately, general service, as you know, if you've been doing it, is almost like an outside issue. I rarely ever, I would say in 100 meetings I go to, I might mention that I'm a delegate once, because it's just outside the purview of Alcoholics Anonymous at the meeting level. But for those of you who truly want to be geeky about it, there's a bunch of us that love general service to that point, and we're available for you. So please be engaged with us. So, and John, that's my 10 minutes. I could talk for 2 hours, but I won't.
Awesome. And thank you very much, man. So I just want to let everybody know before we get into some questions for Ed, we're getting a lot of questions, and that is phenomenal. We're going to answer every one of those, all right? And I promise you that if we can't get to them before this is over, because we're limited, I want everybody that's going to share to have their opportunity. You send me the questions, you just get them to us, we'll get them answered for you one way or another. We'll send them to the delegates, we'll send them to the people that will get us the answer. So with that, Martin, do we have some questions for Ed?
Nobody has posted any questions for what Ed just gave us, but we do have a question. Joyce said that somebody had a question for Tiffany. I'm hoping she can resend it to me. And then someone had a question also for Tiffany. There are some groups that are ignoring the county or state mandates, and doesn't this impact AA as a whole or other AA meetings, and therefore be something that that maybe should be addressed?
Well, I mean, if Tiffany wants to address that, that's fine. I mean, like I said, we got a lot to go through. I think basically what's happening is maybe in this office and elsewhere is, we have to abide by what the laws of the state are, right? So whatever the governor talks about, whatever they talk about shutting down, and what's essential, what's not, those types of things, and we act accordingly. This is all new for all of us. I mean, so a lot of us may have a lot of opinions tonight, which is awesome. That's but the legitimate questions, like, again, I tell you, we'll get to all those questions. But what we're going to do is there's.
I got a question.
Go ahead, John.
Hey, Ed. Got a bunch of questions. I wasn't able to get them to Martin. Would outdoor meetings, are they risking losing their members' anonymity if they're holding a meeting in a park, something like that?
Awesome question.
Well, so actually, I think one of the things that that we can maybe have a group discussion at the end that are those kind of things. I'd really like to try to focus more on anything relative to the conference, just to make sure that you're informed in that respect. I have an opinion on what you're talking about, and as long as we don't all have AA placards on our backs, we're probably fine. I mean, we'd be construed as a picnic or a church group. I mean, there's ways of maintaining anonymity without showing that we're AA. But I'm particularly interested in anything relative to the conference, just to make sure that you guys are informed in that. And any other questions like that, I'll just wait to the end for the group.
Okay, awesome.
I got one more for you, Ed. This one, will you be doing any further work with General Service Office as the year goes on regarding the Literature Committee?
Yeah, so the one thing that's come up just in the last few days is on August 15th, Leslie B. out of New York is going to be presenting to the conference financial report. So what we received in May was not audited. So we're going to be getting that back, and so I'll be able to provide that. And then on August 17th, Kathy, that'll be after the General Service Board meets at the end of this month. And we're going to have a trustees report. So those are two things that in mid-August I'll be able to share. As far as the Literature Committee, only 2 of our items went through. There was 1 floor action that also passed. And so all of those literature items will be coming back. And since I am a Panel 70 delegate, I'll be on the Literature Committee again next year. So all of those things that are posted on our Area 9 website, if you have any questions, for example, there's also a call for news stories for Alcoholics Anonymous and the older alcoholic. And I've had 3 different people already contact me about providing stories that could be forwarded back to GSO relative to that. And actually, Irene is the GSO staff member associated with that. So I expect that we'll continue to work on it. The Literature Committee doesn't have any dates right now to meet. Most of our work at the area level will begin probably in November when GSO starts trickling out the agenda items to us. and then on February 15th. So the good thing is we went in with 98 items since only 15 were resolved, and there are 4 floor actions. We still have 85, 89 items that we'll be considering for the next panel. So any input that you have on any of those is welcome.
Thank you, Ed.
Busy, busy, busy. Thank you, Ed, for your time, man, and we really appreciate your service too. That was a lot of good information. So any other questions for Ed, we can get to him later on if we have some time or whatever. We'll get everybody's questions answered, okay? So we are going to move on, and one of the most difficult things that we're doing right now is working with others, man, and there's a lot of variables in that, and who better to talk about that than somebody who does that as well as anybody else. And so I want to introduce Colette. Welcome, Colette. Can't hear you. Can't hear you. Oh no.
Is working. Now can you hear?
Go. There you go. Oh.
Okay. All right, good. I'm Colette. I'm an alcoholic. And thank you all. Thank you to District and Intergroup for putting this all together. And thank you, Jeff and Tiffany and Ed so far for what you've said. It's all been really valuable and informing to me. I've been asked to talk about working with others, specifically working with others in this new age of COVID. My sobriety date is 6/26/97, and I've been sponsoring other women since I was about 2 years sober. After I reached the 12th step, my sponsor was specific in her direction that I should not sponsor until I reached the actual step 12. The directions I give my sponsees is very much like the directions I gleaned from my sponsor. After I reached the 12th step, the promise in that step came true for me. The promise is having had a spiritual awakening as a result of this step. So my spirit woke up. My spirit woke up. Then I was ready to carry the message to another woman. This also in hopes that she has the same promise come true for her, that her spirit wakes up. When a woman asks me to be their sponsor, I ask them if they can make the commitment to meet with me at my home for 1 hour per week. Of note, I've been successful at doing this over the phone, meeting for an hour over the phone every week as well, in circumstances that preventing us from meeting in person. Keeping in mind Chapter 7, working with others in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, I share with my sponsee about my drinking, and I describing those things that actually qualify me as an alcoholic, so that she knows that I am. And after she hears my story, there's usually little doubt that I'm an alcoholic, and she's pretty much convinced. We start reading the preface, and we go into the forewords. It's in the foreword to the 4th edition that we read the last sentence that says, modem to modem and face to face, AAs speak the language of the heart in all its power and simplicity. This tells me that I have the blessing from the World AA Group Conscience that this is proper and effective way to carry the message modem to modem. Which brings me to the ability to do this with video conferencing such as Zoom or FaceTime. Since the beginning of sobriety, I've rarely missed over a week where I didn't go to at least one meeting. I attribute my ability to stay sober in part due to this. So at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, the saying, miss your face, took on a different level for me. I was so used to having the relief of attending in-person AA meetings that I think I took it for granted a little bit. But I soon realized when we began sub-quarantining that I started to fear a little bit about my ability to stay sober and without, in-person AA meetings. Then I remembered what I had heard about the Loners Internationalist meeting, LIM for short, that is coordinated by GSO in New York. The Loners Internationalist meeting, LIM, is a confidential bi-monthly bulletin sent to loners. And I'll just read this off of the service material that's provided by GSO. It's also for homers, internationalists, support contracts, and loaner sponsors. The bulletin contains excerpts from LIM members' letters that are sent to the General Service Office, GSO of Alcoholics Anonymous. The bulletin includes full names and addresses. LIM is distributed only to the members who appreciate the need for confidentiality of personal sharing with one another through correspondence. The first LIM bulletin printed in 1949 as the Internationalist Round Robin was a few pages of excerpts from letters received at GSO and mailed to a small band of internationalists determined to stay sober no matter how isolated they were. A little bit about the history of LIM. It began through the efforts of a guy named Captain Jack S., a sailor who found sobriety in AA and understood that to maintain sobriety, he needed to reach out to other members through correspondence. Initially, Captain Jack was looking for AA contacts in port cities when he wrote a letter to GSO, dated March 28, 1946. Captain Jack requested information on AA contacts because he was still at sea on oil tankers on which he writes, I have served for 10 years. He writes, I have a few contacts ashore with AA and have to rely on the book and the guy upstairs. A GSO staff member provided Captain Jack with the names of AA contacts in port cities and encouraged him to write to other seagoing members, which he did. After the publication, A Loner at Sea by Captain Jack in 1948, one of the grapevine issues, plans began to take shape to start internationalists meeting by mail. So these guys couldn't attend AA meetings in person. Letters responding to that grapevine article prompted another GSO staff member to suggest to Captain Jack that he consider starting a round-robin meeting via letters, meaning that round-robin, when you tag another person tags another. So Captain Jack responded positively and suggested the name be the Far East Internationalist Group. He said that name would leave it open to lone members stationed ashore in the Far East and also to men who sail these waters under flags of different nations. Captain Jack died in December 1988 at age 91, a few months after celebrating his 42nd AA anniversary. He had remained active in the fellowship, seeking newcomers in Portland, Maine, where he had retired, while continuing to answer the many letters that he received. AA's phenomenal worldwide growth is attributed in part to Captain Jack and hundreds of internationalists like him who, sailing the seven seas, carried the message wherever they dropped anchor. So, we as AA members, faced with the same dilemma of not being able to meet in person, can drop the anchor wherever we are. And that's where I find myself. These loners were willing to do what it took to stay sober. that's what I was asked when I started, you know, when I began recovery. Was I willing to do whatever it took to stay sober? And of course, I said yes. Although I thought they were going to have me do all kinds of things that I didn't imagine what they were going to ask me to do, like go through the steps or stop drinking. But, you know, I find myself still committed to doing whatever it takes, and today. And so when I have you know, I found an obstacle due to COVID, like many of us. And my sponsor and others in AA have always told me that when I have a problem or find myself with an obstacle, I can look at this as an opportunity for growth. So I want to grow so that I don't go. And if I'm still growing, it means I'm still alive. If I stop growing, it means I'm probably dead, at least in some way. I still require my sponsees to check in with me via Zoom or the phone. And we've done FaceTime as well to do step work. And I also tell them, you know, I got to stay sober, so please call me, or let's set up this time, you know, because it's not all about them, it's about me as well. I have to stay sober. Recently, I was honored to hear one of my sponsees, 5th Steps, which we did via Zoom. And I got to watch in real time her amazing experience with this step. Afterwards, my heart was full, and I realized that we were doing whatever it takes to stay sober and to grow. And like others have said, I'm so very proud of us in AA that we've done this and how quickly everyone stepped up and made meetings happen, you know, despite all this. I just, it's really, you guys never cease to amaze me. So, and it gives me, like I said, that fills my heart, and I just really am so thankful for this program, and I'm going to continue to do what it takes, and I hope you all do too. I'm sure you will, because I have to have you there for me also, in unity, and you know, we're doing it. We're doing it. This is AA, and like someone else had mentioned, I attended an online Zoom meeting where there were several newcomers, and many of them had never, had 2 or 3 months sobriety, so those newcomers had never experienced in-person physical meetings, and you know, they're still sober, and so I find that amazing also. So anyway, thank you so much for letting me share my experience, strength, and hope. I hope I helped. Thank you.
Thank you, Colette, very much. That was absolutely awesome, inspirational. Just a little note to that. A lot of the guys that I've talked to that have only been on Zoom meetings, when I say to them, can't you wait to go to an in-person meeting? They're like, hell no, I'm scared to death. I don't want to be in front of people. The dynamic has just changed, but it's still, you know, we're still reaching the newcomers, and they're staying sober no matter what. So thank you, Colette. That was awesome. Martin, do we have any questions for Colette? Comments?
Nothing was posted.
Okay.
And we're out of time.
We're out of time. I don't know what that means, but I'm going to keep going. Colette, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on. I just don't want to tear her name up. It's Irini. She is our next guest. She's a staff member at General Service Office from the Accessibilities Desk, and I want to welcome her. Hello.
Hi, my name is Irene.
Irene.
You can call me Irene. Back in the day, people call me several names, so it's great. It sounds great. I'm an alcoholic, and I am an employee at the General Service Office at the Accessibilities and Remote Communities desk. And thank you so much for having me in California, Area 9. I used to say, and I have to say still, I say, I learned a lot about service and AA in Area 9. Area 9 was that PhD that I always wanted to have, but I never got. You gave me that. I've never been in an intergroup and district event, so this is serious. I'm nervous. I had been in this assignment for almost a year, and as you know, I transferred from Lavinia to accessibilities. And I have to say, I come from a world where we had a meeting in print, from a magazine that was rely on mail distribution. And in less than a year now, I'm in this world that everything is virtual. So it's been quite a change. Accessibilities and remote communities in the year 2009 expanded its scope from special needs, for all you probably know this, I didn't know that, to accessibilities, to broaden the scope of the service, to expand the preoccupation on opening AA, to carry the message to everyone who has to overcome barriers. And those barriers can be, when the name change, can be physical, mental, geographical, cultural, racial. So it's a really interesting assignment. And in this time, it's double interesting. Just a little bit of information. Currently, we have 290 access chairs, 55 remote community committees, and 15 chairs of the cooperation with the elder communities. And I say that because there had been some interest and upticks in one of those, in those committees. So I can foresee that in the future we're going to have more chairs or maybe one of those committees is going to grow. I thank you for all of you, my predecessor, or all the speakers, because really great information. So I don't want to go through what is happening in GSO. You already know. In accessibilities, I think I can resume with these two facts. For a long time, online intergroups existed, and it was kind of on the corner. This global crisis, or this health crisis, put in the spotlight just the first days of the lockdown and the interest in online intergroup. The second day that we were working from home, I had my email inbox and my phone receiving so many calls and questions. So what about the online? I heard about an online intergroup. What is that? Please give me, what is that, virtual meetings? And I think it took like 2 or 3 weeks, I saw that online intergroup, even they have to change, they update their wonderful website. And we all start to realize, the service that the intergroup is doing. They offer more than 1,000 meetings, worldwide meetings, in so many languages, and also offering ASL meetings and different variations. And it was there all this time, and suddenly it's in the spotlight. And another more recent intergroup that also became really a star of the moment was the deaf intergroup in it's called, I'm sorry, let me say well the name, the deaf intergroup of Central Texas. The guys over there, the folks working over there, they're doing an incredible work trying to reach out to the deaf and hard of hearing alcoholic. And I have to quote one of the members of the coordinators that she sent me recently a report saying that for the first time in history, deaf AA members all over the country have had access every single day to an ASL interpreted meeting. That means that many more or deaf AA members are finding sponsors and are able to participate, and they're no longer feeling alone. And so they're really excited, and they send me they have a new directory that they have been updating every week with resources and schedules for meetings with ASL interpretation, and also they have plans to have bilingual meetings where English-speaking members share along with ASL members. So this has been an incredible opportunity given by these terrible circumstances. We didn't know that we could open the doors and facilitate ASL translation to many AAs around the country. That happened also I can say in the Hispanic community. I can talk by the experience in my area that we have been seeing in our Zoom meetings, Hispanic Zoom meetings, an increasing amount of women participating, which wasn't possible in the face-to-face meetings. I don't know, and I would love to hear from California what's going on there, but in Area 49, women were in the Hispanic meetings were very scarce or none. And now we count with many of them, many newcomers, old-timers participating and doing service, and all because they were able to or feel more emboldened to participate in a digital meeting. That's been really interesting. I appreciate Colette commenting on Learners International meeting. This desk also coordinates that bulletin. And that's also really interesting. A lot of requests to participate in Learners International meetings. So then you see, I hear people saying, no, I cannot go to a Zoom meeting. But then you have a lot of people writing and say, hey, can I participate in a meeting that is, through basically letters and emails? So it's a balance, or, but we are looking, we're from the point of view of this desk, is that, there are so many things out there to help to reach out to other alcoholics. Now, there is work to do because as the members of the deaf intergroup also commented, there are members who have no access to internet, no access to even phones, and how are we going to reach them? And that's we are. I'm hearing we are collecting, sharing experiences how committees are working around the country trying to help those members. Recently, I received a call from somebody asking me how to help a member who cannot, a blind member, who a visually impaired member who wanted to participate in the virtual international conference. And this person also didn't have internet. So the member said that what she did is that she put in her computer and the videos of the international conference, virtual international conference, and through the phone help the member to, help the member, so the member could hear the videos, the recording, basically. And so that was interesting to, how, a person who probably would have never gone to the international convention or enjoyed the international convention, now in this strange way, well, she was able. Which made us thinking, well, maybe the committees can create some CDs and distribute those CDs with a record of the international event. So these are things that our desk, the accessibility desk, has been hearing. And one of the things that I wanted to end, I don't want to roll out, is that has been an uptick of interest in alcoholics who reach sobriety late in life. And as I said, we have 15 committees cooperation with the elder community, but it seems, it looks like, and I was talking with the Grapevine editor saying maybe we should have an issue, or they should have an issue on getting sober late in life, because we have been hearing of a lot of older members who are looking for AA. And I have a couple of people last week who told me that they couldn't find members of 75 through Zoom. They were able to participate in a Zoom meeting, but they were a little taken aback of finding only people of 50, and they wanted to find people of 75. So I was thinking, well, that's a labor for cooperation of the elder with the elder community, which also is we cooperate with those committees. I think Ed mentioned the pamphlet. We are going to send a new call for stories for the AA for the older alcoholics. So stay tuned, because in August we're sending a new call with it. We're looking for a lot of diversity in the stories. And I think that's more or less what I have. I would love to hear the questions, and well, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Renee.
Irene, Irene.
Thank you so much. Martin, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you, Ken. Thank you, Irene. I have a bunch. First, have you been able to help people who are not technologically challenged?
Well, thank you for the question. That's a good question. That's exactly the anecdote that I was telling. I haven't been particularly directly involved in helping somebody with those challenges, but I have heard of, for example, the anecdote that I just told about the person helping somebody who wanted to participate in international convention, and that person was visually impaired and didn't have internet. Many other, like helping in my area directly, because in my home group, when we try, my home group is Hispanic group, we tried to set up the Zoom meetings. It was quite hard because not many of the members of our community were able to really manipulate Zoom. They don't have computers, mostly use phones, and through phone it was difficult. Most of everything because the instructions came in English. So that's kind of my direct experience, my indirect experience.
Thank you. This one just came in. Is there a schedule for the ASL meetings on Zoom?
Yes, the Deaf Intergroup, and I don't have the website here, but it's Deaf Intergroup of Central Texas. They do have a schedule. Now, if you can find in the online intergroup, they do have a section for ASL meetings. And I'm not so sure if San Francisco, but for sure the Deaf Intergroup in Texas, they do have a schedule, and in the online intergroup.
Next question. H&I has been severely affected. Are there plans to assist AAs that are institutionalized?
I haven't really heard, I haven't heard, that's a topic that we work through with treatment. I've not in my, I guess through treatment we will get some plans of that, but I can find out more about that.
That's really a different umbrella. Does child care fall under accessibilities? Will there be guidance from GSO regarding people who have child care issues?
Great question. That was a question that was very, very, it came often last year. And we don't have a guidelines, but we do have a shared experience. Every time that I receive a question about that, I will, respond with that shared experience about people solving childcare in different ways. And certainly, if there is a need, we can create a guideline gathering that information. Now, with this crisis, that question disappeared, but I'm sure that it will come back, and we can certainly create an AA guidelines with the shared experience.
Here's another one. Why do so few Hispanic women go to meetings?
Well, that's a very good question. It's culturally, it's been hard for the connotation of being an alcoholic, or the name alcoholic. It has a lot of other connotations in the Hispanic community. So I can tell you by myself too, it took me forever to say that I'm borracha, and it's easier to say I'm an alcoholic, because it means it takes a lot of other connotations that are not very acceptable in a family oriented culture. Then there are other elements too. For men, even though if they are alcoholics and they practice the unity and all that, it's still the cultural barrier of seeing another woman in the meetings, and it's been something that's hard to, or had been taking time to accept that. So it's several issues there. Now, California, the Pacific region has been pioneer, and I know that there is a large group of women, Hispanic women, that have been getting together, and they have been doing wonderful workshops. I was invited in one a year ago, and it's a large group of women participating in an AA, and slowly trying to let some old-timers that it's let them know that AA is for everyone.
Okay, I have another question. Have you had any experiences helping the mental health community?
No, we haven't. I don't have, in my short time, I haven't had an experience with that. We do have the pamphlets. We do have, I think mostly the pamphlets I think they're very, very useful, but I haven't had any requests in my time.
And a similar question, AA has challenges reaching the African American community. In your work at the Accessibilities Desk, have you realized any solutions we can offer, especially during the pandemic?
Well, that's a larger issue. I think Ed also mentioned there is a pamphlet coming out. The conference has approved, I think, if I'm not, a pamphlet on for the African American, an update on the pamphlet. There is work done on that in many ways. I think that's also part of this. It will be part of. It will be a pamphlet included in the kit of the accessibility committees, and it's obviously there's a lot to do in there. But I think the pamphlet is a great step for that.
Yeah, Martin, so there were 2 floor actions. One was specific to that pamphlet. So even though it didn't pass from the literature committee, it did pass as a successful floor action to continue to work on it. And then the other thing that came out was a brand new floor action that produces a public service announcement for minorities. And it was presented by one of the African-American female delegates. So they didn't define what minority meant, but certainly it would include African-Americans.
Thank you, Ed.
Okay, is that all we got, Martin?
There's one more. It's kind of a mouthful. Let me see if I can say this. It's from Lynn. She says, like everyone else, I'm really missing not being able to do bridging the gap, H&I, in a lot of places, and some public information, cooperation with the professional community, etc. What are some concrete suggestions for getting places from prisons, jails, institutions, elder care homes, veteran homes, etc., to be more open to bringing Zoom meetings in? Other ways to reach out that don't include physical meetings.
Well, I think that's a question that is really good, but also it reaches more like cooperation with the professional community. I think that desk is working really hard on creating better ways to inform the administrators of facilities and professionals through the treatment and the CPC. So I think that's I will take note of this because it's something I will talk with my colleague at CPC and treatment. I don't have anything particular to tell you now, like a suggestion. I don't know if Jeff wants to say something about that, or if you have something, but otherwise I will take this note and I will make sure to bring this in the conversation with my colleague at CPC and treatment.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I think we're going to move on, but like I said again, everybody, if you got questions and they didn't get answered, send them to me, send them to John, send them to Martin, send them to everybody. We'll get them to the right people and we'll get your questions answered. So, excuse me. So we are going to move on. And our next topic is going to be hosting an online meeting. And I want to welcome Suzanne.
Hi. Good evening. I'm Suzanne. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Suzanne.
Hey, Suzanne.
Hi. Thanks so much for asking me to speak. And all the talks have been really amazing. So interesting. Every one of them had this like wow moment. So anyway, here's my talk. So just a few weeks after AA moved to Zoom, I realized that I would need to start an entirely new 12-step program, hosting Anonymous. And for those affected by Zoom hosts, a new offshoot would also need to be created, Host Anon. If you've hosted Zoom meetings for any length of time, you'll get the joke. I was both lucky and unlucky to have had experience with Zoom and remote meetings before the quarantine, which I'll talk about why in a bit. But when our meeting closed, my home group, Zoom seemed like an obvious choice because it was user-friendly and easy to get. The more difficult part of starting a Zoom meeting was also the part that was the most important, communication. It would have been easy to just tell my friends and hope everyone else heard about it eventually, but I was afraid of what the repercussions could be for those who didn't hear about it or heard about it later, or worse, after it was too late. It was important to follow the many fine examples of inclusion I had seen in my home groups and resist the temptation to make the meeting a private group of just the members I liked. One thing services taught me is to be honest with myself about why I'm doing it in the first place. If I'm trying to prove something to myself or look good, or I'm doing it because I have X amount of time and I think it's expected of me, or I'm trying to be the hero, I'm going to run into some resentments. But the tricky thing is we don't always know why we do service when we agree to do it. It's easy to get lost and think it's up to me to help another alcoholic or save a meeting. It's easy to forget I do God's work, but I don't do God's job. That's just my experience. If you relate to that, I'm sorry, but you're not alone. Anyway, back to communication. I thought Zoom would be a good idea. So at our final meeting before the quarantine, I asked the group if that was something they would be interested in. Because something I have learned from having a home group was that the group is not mine. I may love it, and I may think I know what's best for it, and I may want what I think is best for it, and I may think I know what that is. But all of that leaves a higher power, not to mention a group conscience, out of the picture. Enough people were interested in trying it, so I went on the website, picked an account, and set it up. I don't remember exactly what criteria I picked. I think it's like a pro account. So I needed it to accommodate 60 or 70 people. Actually, when I went and checked it, I asked for it to accommodate 100 people, which was a little ambitious for a 7 a.m. meeting. But 60 or 70 was about how many people usually came. And I also needed it to go at least an hour. I don't know what other selections I made, but I ended up with kind of an expensive package. But it and we were not round of mandatory passwords. But, looking back, it might have been better to have a Zoom room for all groups were models for me of how to handle those attacks, and I also learned the bombers never succeeded in closing any of the meetings I attended. They might disrupt the meeting, but they didn't close it, and I got to see fellows become more savvy using technology to block them. I'll just add here that all those phone meetings had passwords also. What kept the bombers from succeeding, in my experience, were calm, swift, alert hosts. So also as important, I learned about remote format meeting etiquette from those meetings. This was mainly because the people hosting them were very good at communicating the expectations for the meeting, but it was also from the meetings where the hosts were not clear about communicating what was expected and for my own reactions to those meetings. When you are trying to listen to someone share and you're desperate to hear some message to get through your day, and you are alone in a way you have never been alone, you would be amazed at how absolutely maddening it is to hear someone chewing or talking to a cashier while they're shopping or doing dishes. I found I personally would keep going back to meetings where I could actually physically hear what I needed to hear, while if there were too many distractions at another meeting, I would simply hang up. The etiquette of remote meetings is very simple. As a host, it is imperative to just keep the background noise as minimal as possible without being a tyrant. Let people know you're going to mute the meeting when it starts and ask that people remain muted until they want to share. As an attendee, it is very helpful to the host and everyone else to mind your mic. We all make a lot more noise than we think we do. We clear our throats, we rustle papers, we slurp coffee. On the other end, everything is amplified by the stress of whatever has put us on a remote meeting in the first place. That is all just my opinion, but muting goes a long way toward retaining attendees. People come back to meetings that are quiet because they feel they will be heard and that what they have to say is important enough to be quiet for it. We all know we don't always do this in real life meetings, but it seemed important when the quarantine began to make the meeting as much as possible like the real life meeting, and simply having a quiet background was easy enough to accomplish. A lot of people told me they appreciated that at our home group as they ventured out to other meetings, and I think when the world is in disorder, it's important to give people some sense of order. Along those lines, it was necessary, as it always is, to include fellows in any decisions that would affect the meeting. I just made an effort to not make any unilateral decisions, and I felt this was especially important with regards to whether or not to have a password, which our group voted not to have. As more meetings came online, it was very exciting to be able to travel the world and sit on meetings anywhere at any time of the day or night. But what came with that were the bomber attacks. Unfortunately, what came after that was a lot of locked meetings. I've thought a lot about whether the necessity to have a meeting at all justifies having a password on the meeting that someone desperate will have to call someone or text someone or email someone who may or may not respond before the meeting starts. And I do see the logic of that. But on the other side of that were a lot of people who needed a meeting, already dealing with a very frustrating situation, already isolated with or without loved ones. Now locked out of the one place they were always told they could never be locked out of. In some cases, this was a group decision. In other cases, it was Zoom's decision. But from that, I learned it was worth it to go with like the more expensive package and not tell Zoom when the meetings were, because we were able to avoid being arbitrarily assigned a password. I think that's why, not positive, but my opinion, and it is only that, is it is better not to have a password and use other options like the waiting room and simple vigilance. It is also effective to make someone a co-host to help you out. A lot of this presented opportunities to ask for help, and for me to trust that the help would come. Finally, I'll talk about what happens after a few weeks of hosting, because it's something unexpected. It's not like leading a meeting or being a secretary. If you're hosting, it is very difficult to monitor the microphones, check who's logging in to make sure they have all their clothes on, and keep track of questions in the chat, as well as well-meaning friends who want to catch up while you're doing all of this. As a host, you're not really getting a meeting yourself. While I started out hosting the meeting every day, because we meet Monday to Friday, little by little, I had to let others take over the commitment. I found a lot of my ego got involved in thinking I was more responsible for the meeting than I actually was, and that in turn made me pretty cranky. I knew I needed to reach out and get others involved one day when I was talking on the phone with a friend after a meeting as people were fellowshipping, and she asked what I was doing, and I said, I'm just waiting for these people to get the fuck off my Zoom. That was when I had the upsetting realization I was not muted. So again, that's a very important part of hosting. Mute yourself. What worked best for me also was to train a few people, find a few more who already had experience being hosts, and ask 5 to commit to hosting once a week for 90 days. My career experience has been, if you lead effectively, you won't be necessary for the office to function, if you know what I mean. It's along the lines of what one member of my home group says at the end of every share: Alcoholics Anonymous does not need me, but I need you people. I'll pass.
Awesome. Thank you, Suzanne. That was phenomenal. You know, I don't know, guys, man, we may have to go part 2 on this. There's a lot of discussion being generated, a lot of questions out there about what we can do during this pandemic. So I think we're just going to keep moving on. But Martin, are there any questions for Suzanne, or do we?
There's one very emphatic comment.
Okay.
It says, "Please tell Suzanne, preach, sister."
Preach, girl. Awesome. Thank you again, Suzanne, for your time. We really appreciate it. Okay, so moving on, we are going to hear from, let me think here. We're going to be talking about, where we're going to be listening to them talk about face-to-face meetings. And I believe Peter's up first. Peter, are you there? Are you to my left? Are you to my right? Are you on top? Are you on the bottom? Are you not here? Peter.
Peter.
Okay.
Unmute yourself, Peter.
I can't.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Now,
Oh, there
it's
you
unmuted.
are.
But Cindy's going to go first. We talked, and I thought the flow would be best if Cindy, and I could not unmute myself. Someone had to do it for me.
Okay, to my right and down.
Can you hear me?
Square,
Yeah.
with Cindy first.
All right,
Can you
Cindy.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, Cindy Alcoholic. Thanks for letting me go first, I guess, Peter, but yeah, it will flow better, I hope.
So I am liaison of Unity Hall, which some of you guys know is in Sun City. And I'm just going to talk to you guys about going back to live meetings. So I just love so far all the sharing. Suzanne, it was great, and Tiffany, very good. I can't wait to hear the recording on Tiffany. Basically, we shut down Unity Hall March 17th because of the government mandates, but we reopened May 13th. So we reopened with several challenges. As trusted servants, the board met several times. We had to vote on many guidelines, and so we did open for live meetings. We are still open, but we have several guidelines. You know, a lot of people are not comfortable with trusting technology. You know, I'm really proud of AA and how we've jumped into Zoom and you know, carried on our message, but a lot of people still are not comfortable with technology. So we did reopen. How we reopened was we went and had to measure the room. We took all the tables down. We left one table up for the secretary. We took all the tables down. We measured. We put X's on the floor, 6 feet apart. We allow a capacity of 21 people. There's things you don't even think about. We had to remove the coffee pots and the coffee and allow people to bring your own. And that was like, what do you mean? AA, coffee? You know, bring your own, an hour meeting, bring your own. So no coffee, all because of COVID and germs. We had to remove the coffee pots. We had made masks mandatory. We have supplied boxes of masks. We don't pass the basket around. We have a basket sitting on the secretary table, so you can walk by and drop money in. We also have PayPal and, you know, mailing. So we have supplied sanitizers. We require the secretaries to clean after each meeting. We had to gather and transfer keys because some of the secretaries aren't comfortable or feeling safe to come back into live meetings. So we had a key transferring and gathering. Basically, we thought we'd have a line out the door when we first opened the live meetings. We did not have a line out the door. We have barely reached capacity thus far. I don't know about the evening meetings, but our capacity again is 21. So I really thought we'd have a line out the door, and I've heard of other meetings where you have to register to go. But no, people are not comfortable with this virus, and that's okay. You know, everybody has their own feelings. So during this reopening, we have had to have a few board meetings regarding, you know, keeping it safe and sanitary. So I really enjoyed, again, Tiffany's input. But basically, we've reopened. We started a soft opening with 7 a.m., noon, and 5:30, but almost all our meetings are open except for our potluck, our speaker, and some of our Al-Anon meetings are not open. So with that, we're going to lead into Peter talking about hybrid meetings, because we aren't doing hybrid at Unity. We're lucky we even got Unity Hall open. So with that, let's go to Peter, and he can talk about hybrid meetings. So thanks for letting me share my experience, strength, and hope, guys.
Awesome, Cindy. Hi, all. I'm Peter, alcoholic, and I am on the board at the Alano Club in Temecula. And we opened as well a little bit before Unity Hall did. And it was interesting. Everyone has an opinion, and they let me know what it was. So that was great. And, you know, we are a board, and we did come together, and, you know, we set guidelines, and instead of mandates, we set guidelines. And we started getting in touch with the secretaries saying that we were back open, and if you wanted to conduct your meeting, you could. We also put it on to the meetings to kind of be their own decision makers. You know, we decided coming into the club that, you know, social distancing must be adhere to. You must have a mask, and if needed, wear it, and so on and so forth. You know the drill. And the meeting started happening, and a number of people came to me and said they would like to include their Zoom meetings with their live meeting. And I'm like, oh man, this is nothing but, you know, this is a recipe for disaster, you know, for me, because I'll put the technology together, and I work at IT in my real world job, and I put together a system, someone will figure out a way to break it. And so someone donated a monitor with a built-in camera, and I'm like, okay, I've got an extra computer laying around, I'm gonna put this together. And, you know, a couple of things, you know, one of the recipes for doing this is because the Alano Club has Wi-Fi, that's the first step. You got to have Wi-Fi to put together a Zoom meeting. And a lot of places like Unity Hall, I don't think you have Wi-Fi. So this probably wouldn't be an option unless you wanted to, you know, put out for internet connection. And so with the technology put together, you know, there's a number of lessons I've learned. I probably, you know, if we're going to go forward right now, the Alano Club is closed back down based on this last mandate from the governor. Things were starting to get a little out of hand. People were starting to, you know, complain about those who did wear masks and those who didn't wear masks. And I'm like, okay, you know, we came back together as a board, but we're closed down. But, you know, things will open up again. And there will be those who aren't comfortable going to a live meeting, but want to be part of their group. And so I plan on putting together, you know, I just had a old laptop with the monitor, and there's a bunch of wires, and it's plugged in, and people move it around, and things get unplugged. They call me, where does this wire go? And I'm going, oh Lord, I knew this was going to happen. But, you know, this can be prevented. It's just going to take a little effort on our part to put the technology in place, you know, build it as a kiosk. And, you know, one of the things I've been toying around with is getting with the meetings and say, you've got to designate a person, you know, there has to be a service commitment for the Zoom admin. You know, this like Cindy was talking, or I'm sorry, I know Suzanne was talking, you know, hosting a meeting is work. And, you know, for the safety of the group and the safety of those online, keeping the noise level at a minimum, both in the room. You know, when you're in a live meeting, you don't have people chatting all over the place. In a Zoom meeting, you start to get that, and they're chatting, they're talking, and they're not muting. So you have to have someone in control of that. So training, I'm going to probably make it a mandate that, you know, if you want to include your Zoom meeting with your live meeting, you got to have someone come in, sit with someone that knows the setup. You become comfortable with it, and then, you know, maybe 2 people in the group, because a service commitment should always have a backup, as we know. And so this will be probably one of the new standards I feel going forward, you know, for the groups that are comfortable with including their Zoom meetings. And one of the things I've learned is we'll probably have to put out a little bit monetarily. We'll have to get a speaker for the middle of the table, the speaker, or a microphone, you know, a multi-directional microphone that sits on the table, because that person in the back corner that's sharing you know, and the Zoom machine is sitting in the other corner of the room, they can't hear that person sharing. So it's not very conducive to, you know, being a part of the meeting when you're joining remotely. So to get that, getting a unidirectional microphone sitting in the middle of the room, or maybe a couple of mics around the room. Also, instead of just a monitor, I've got an extra, you know, 50-inch LCD panel that could be mounted on the wall. And then part of the Zoom admin, when there's a speaker coming on the Zoom meeting to join the live meeting, you enlarge them, make them the full focus and hide everyone else. So there'll be, some growing into this, and these are all things I'm learning as well. And one of the other things, security is big, as Suzanne said. I'm concerned not only for the security of the Zoom, but the security of the system, because you put a system out there and you don't lock it down. There's lots of technically savvy people that can play with that and do some kind of bombing, so to speak, with that. And one of the other things are, as the Alano Club, are we going to be responsible for managing the IDs of all these meetings? Or do you just come in with your own ID, meeting ID? And, Zoom is kind of a standard right now, but there's a number of other platforms, like at my office, we use Microsoft Teams, and they're going to have a new release that's going to be very Zoom-like. So there may be some, other platforms out there that are going to be just as powerful or more powerful, more conducive to this type of thing. So we'll have, the flux of the technology changing. So that's going to be really important for that Zoom admin and going forward. And last but not least, actually, that's the end of my notes. Thank you for letting me share. Any questions out there? I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Peter. I just want to say I love all you guys for hanging in there, man. We're going a little long. There's a lot of good information. We're just about getting ready to wrap it up. I think, again, that if we have questions that we can't get answered tonight, send them to me. I will get them to Peter. I will get them to Jeff. I will get them to New York. Whatever that looks like, we'll help everybody get the answers to their questions. So we got to move on, so we can just wrap this up. Our next speaker is Michael from District 17.
Good evening, Ken. Good evening, everybody. My name is Michael. I am an alcoholic.
Good evening, sir.
I'm grateful to be a part of this event, and I'm so blessed to be able to be a part of District 17 as your district committee member chair. And I'd like to thank John and some of our district members who you've heard from, Martin, Brenda, Joyce P., and some of our speakers are with district as well. Peter, Cindy, Suzanne, Colette was our previous DCMC prior to me. It was really great to hear all of you speak and share your experience, strength, and hope. And that's what I've been asked to share. And before I do that, regarding service, I like to talk about when I took on the DCMC responsibility late last year. One of the things that I thought about that I would like to see, and I brought to the group, the District 17 group at our monthly meeting, was the idea of working collaboratively with our two other service entities, one being the Temecula Valley Central Office and also Intergroup. And absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. At the same time, John came up to one of our meetings as a guest, and he has been a regular staple at our monthly meetings since then, over the last 6 months, maybe 7 months. And he knew one of the objectives that we had as district was to continue to carry the message regarding specifically service. And a couple of months ago, maybe a few months ago, he had approached me in a very kind way, and he had asked if we would be able to work together on co-hosting an event, and here we are. And I commend John and Ken and the team that has worked together to put on this. I think this is our first of its kind. And I'm sorry I'm the last one. I'm keeping you and your families and whatever you guys are planning to do this evening. But it's really important to point out what this geographic area, essentially the Temecula Valley Central Office, the Intergroup in District 17, is capable of. And that is working together. And each and every single one of you, I noticed there are people from the GSO, there are people from area. In fact, our area delegate, Ed, was at our recent district meeting on Zoom last week, and he was able to share his share back. And it was fantastic. It was phenomenal. And really, I look at us as a family. And in terms of Alcoholics Anonymous, overall, we are blessed with the founders coming up with the 3 legacies. And the 3 legacies, as you know, are recovery, which are the 12 steps, and unity, which is the fellowship, and then service. I truly believe, I know most of you, I don't know others, and welcome. But I can guess and suspect and assume that each and every single one of us tonight on a Sunday evening at 8:09 p.m., particularly for those that are outside of the Southern California area, are doing this because we have a love and passion. And I needed that when I came into these rooms. I needed to be a part of, not only at the group level, but also at a service level. And I've been fortunate that I have experience at Intergroup. I have experience on being on the board at the Temecula Valley Central Office. And now I have experience with district. And there are individuals who have showed me how to do this. And when I took the position on as the DCMC of District 17 mid to late last year, I came in as the subcommittee literature chair, and I was in a learning process, and I continue to learn. And I'll keep his name anonymous, but my sponsor is on the phone. Thank you so much for showing me how this is done. My service sponsor, I will not keep anonymous. It was Colette. Colette, thank you for your continued guidance. And that's what we do. We share with one another what A is about, what AA is about, from our own particular perspective, and what we do within AA and how we are of service to others. And I'm grateful. And I'll get into the District 17 service. And as we read at District, I'm going to read, to give those who are not familiar with what District does, is the GSR preamble, which I truly believe will give you a good overview of what it is, our purpose is. And here it is. We are the general service representatives. We are the link in the chain of communication for our groups with the General Service Conference and the world of AA. We realize the ultimate authority is a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. As trusted servants, our job is to bring information to our groups in order that they can reach an informed group conscience. In passing along this group conscience, we are helping to maintain the unity and strength so vital to our fellowship. Let us therefore have the patience and tolerance to listen while others share, the courage to speak up when we have something to share, and the wisdom to do what is right for our group and AA as a whole. And in my particular experience this evening, I've heard that. I've heard the patience, the tolerance, the listening, the sharing of experience, strength, and hope. And for that, I am truly grateful. And I just thought about this. I am not on video right now, and it's simply because I was driving back from Las Vegas. And for those of you who know me, I'd like to share an important bit of information about Michael. My fiance, Kimberly, and I got married in Las Vegas. And during the challenge of COVID, we were able to find a loving God, and a loving God to bring us together, and ultimately to make a decision to be wed. We did have a wedding ceremony, a traditional wedding ceremony, and wedding reception planned. And unfortunately, the wedding venue, outside of their own control, are unable to have weddings. So we prayed about it, and we took one step and put one foot in front of the other. And we ended up in Las Vegas, and we were wed on Friday evening. And we are truly, truly blessed. So that's why you're not seeing me on Zoom, because we were driving back. In fact, my wife, I'm pleased to share that with you, was driving while I was listening and while I was preparing for my portion of this evening's program. If there are specific challenges for District 17, it is obviously getting together. And over the last 4 months, we have gotten together as scheduled, as usual, on the second Tuesday of the month. And we start at 6 p.m. for our new GSR orientation. And we begin our general business meeting at 6:30. And it runs typically to the minute. At 8:15, we end. And we review all of our we discuss and hear all of our GSRs. We typically have about 25 or 30 fellows representing groups as GSRs, and we also have chairs and alternate chairs for the different committees, like accessibilities with Martin. Brenda, I apologize, Brenda. Brenda is also a part of our district. She has double roles within our district and within AA, but she is one of our sub-district DCMs. So we hear reports out and we get informed. And there are times when individuals would come with a basic question: how do you do this? How would we do this? How would we approach this? And we're able to discuss from an experience, strength, and hope perspective what we're able to help another fellow with something that we have done. And that's no different from how we do that at a group level, at an intergroup level, or even at a Temecula Valley Central Office level. You know, we work together collaboratively. We do it with love and tolerance, and sometimes with patience. And those are things that I continue to learn how to do by watching each and every single one of you, whether it's at a Zoom meeting, whether it's at an area meeting, whether it's at a intergroup meeting, or whether it's at a group meeting. And for that, I am truly grateful. So we do get together in the midst of the challenge of COVID. We are looking forward to opening up at some point in time. Just as an FYI, everybody here tonight is invited to join us. And it's at the Springs Community Church on Winchester, right off of Jefferson, for those of you who are familiar with the Temecula area. And over the last 4 months, we have had them on Zoom. In fact, the last time I've seen anybody, with the exception of a few of you, was at PRASA, which was at Tucson. And I really miss you guys. I miss seeing your faces. I miss hearing your shares coming from your faces, and missing the hugs and the handshakes, and coming up and doing what we do, and that is carrying the message. Moving forward, we have talked at the last district meeting last Tuesday as to how are we going to do this. And because we are in a church, the church has been directed by the county to put together a plan of action on how they're going to be able to manage the church membership. And the church has asked district to do the same. So right now we have an ad hoc subcommittee that is still being formed to put together some thoughts and ideas. We would obviously work with the church to determine what it is that we need to do. But we are looking forward to opening up. But I will add, in terms of our due diligence, safely. And what we're able to do is to have a discussion, and it started off a month ago and this past Tuesday, and we will continue that discussion, and we will get to a place that may look like, sound like what I heard Peter talk about, and others as well, hybrid. And we don't know, but we know that our group conscience will be guided by a power greater than ourselves, God. And we will continue to do what is necessary and put one foot in front of the other. The second challenge, and forgive me, but it is a challenge, and it's my responsibility to share it here tonight. And there was some discussions, and it's contributions. As many of the groups have not met in person, the contributions at the group level, from my understanding, have lessened. I'm not quite certain if that is also at the intergroup and or the Temecula Valley Central Office, but it's certainly lessened at the district level. Now, our primary purpose is to communicate information, again, from the General Service Office to the GSRs through area, and then ultimately to the individual groups. And one of the ways that we do that is to conduct service events like this. And our goal at the beginning of the year was to conduct 3 of them. We are midway, and this is our first one, and happens to be co-host. Not that it's any less. It is something that I am truly grateful for, to John and to Ken and to his group of fellows that have put this on. But that is what we strive to do. And we have subcommittees that need to go out to accessibilities, to corrections, to treatment, and public information and the like. And they need resources, whether it be literature, whether it be etc. And I don't want to speculate because I don't know exactly what each group needs, but those require funds. And if our funds are limited, and if I'm not mistaken, I don't think our treasurer, Bill, is on the line. We have started to go into our prudent reserve, or we're thinking going into it shortly here because of the limited or decreased contributions. But I will say this, our expenses are also not exceeding simply because we're not utilizing funds. So it's a challenge that we are aware of. We want to make sure that we are being prudent with what we have been given by the groups and by the other entities who contribute to district. But that's something that has been voiced at our meetings in the past. But we will continue to forge forward, and we will continue in faith, and everything will work out the way that it's supposed to work out. So with that, again, I invite you to our District 17 monthly meeting, second Tuesday of the month, 6 p.m. for new GSR, 6:30 for the general business meeting. Currently, the next meeting is slated to be on Zoom. I try to send out to everybody, maybe John or one of the hosts will open it up. I'm going to put my telephone number, my email, and if you are interested in being of service or just being a guest, just to see what we do and how we roll at district, I implore you and I invite you to come out and join us. And with that, thank you so much. I know I'm the last one. Bless all of you, and I can't wait to see every one of you at an upcoming face-to-face meeting. Thanks for letting me be of service.
Thank you, Michael. Never know what happens in Vegas, man. You never know. You never know.
Well, I know I got married.
Yeah, congratulations. All right. Oh, excuse me. So we're going to wrap this up real quickly, though. Just a couple of notes from central office. We are open. I have dispatched all of the volunteers. There are no volunteers in the office, so it gives me a better opportunity to keep it clean and keep it safe. There's numerous ways for you guys to get your literature. I will deliver it. Contact list delivery, whatever. You guys can come down here with a mask on. You guys can. There's literature available, and we have it. So central office is open regular business hours. Our hotline is hopping. It is hot. It is ringing a lot off the hook. You know, we're in business here. You know, there's a lot of people are calling and asking a lot of questions. People need direction on where to go get sober. You know, and so luckily for us, we have a lot of information. I got a lot more tonight that's going to help me in this pandemic, and we're just going to keep going forward. And I got to believe, man, maybe we should do another one of these. This generated a lot of conversations that just couldn't get done in 2 hours. And so I love you guys for that. And please continue to come to central office to do your business, whatever that looks like. We got to take care of our meetings financially. We got to take care of our meeting places financially. We have to take care of our area financially. We have to take care of New York financially. Whatever that looks like for you, we just have to continue to do that on whatever form we can. So I just want to say thank you guys. Thank you guys from New York. Thank you guys from everywhere else that you guys are at. I'm stoked, man. This has been a long time coming that we were going to get together and do this, and I'm really like I'm speechless. I'm speechless. So what I want to do is wrap this up, and I just want to thank the committee, everybody that was involved in this. Thank you guys very much. This went way better than expected, and so thank you guys collectively. And then everybody who participated, all of our speakers, we love you guys. Thank you so much, and we may be calling you back, to continue this discussion, because we're in the middle of it. I don't think it's over. So our biggest challenge is to continue to spread the message, right? So the alcoholic who wants to get sober, and that's what we're here for tonight. So I just want to, here we go. Any service related announcements? Give everybody a couple of minutes here, and if there's any service things that are coming up that we need to get involved in.
Hey, Ken, I just wanted to share something that I only recently learned, and that's the importance of the central office in supporting our literature. I recently found out from our CFO just, I think last weekend, that 40% of literature sales are from central office. So even though the GSO has been getting enhanced contributions over the last 2 months, it's literature that we still need to take care of. And central office is essential for that because it sells almost half of what GSO actually sells.
Awesome. And again, Jeff already said it. GSO, they're offering huge discounts on literature. I'm all over it. We're in a position where you guys are being pretty generous, and we're above water, and we can buy literature, and they're offering it to us at I need to get some right now. So we appreciate that, Jeff, and that's going to help us in the future. Anything else anybody want to say real quick before we wrap this up? It's been a long night, man.
Thanks for being
here, all you guys.
Good job, Ken.
Thank you guys very much. And at the end, okay, so I've asked Mike to read the responsibility pledge.
My name is Mike. I'm an alcoholic.
Mike.
I am responsible when anyone, anywhere reaches out for help. I want the hand of AA always to be there. And for that, I am responsible.
Woo!
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much.
Okay, everybody has the ability to unmute themselves if they'd like. It's a free.
Good night, y'all.
Bye, Benjamin.
See you, brother.
Great job, everybody.
Thanks, John. Thank you, Ken, for all of that. That was great information, man. I'm so glad I came. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank
you. You guys take care.
Good job, guys. Love you.
If anybody's got any other questions, I'll be to stay after for a little bit.
Questions for Tiffany. What disinfectant should we be using, Tiffany? Lysol wipes, okay?
You got to read the back of the package, and you would be surprised to find out, for instance, Lysol spray, it actually has to stay wet for 10 minutes to do everything that it claims to do. What? And it's in the writing on the back. Even at the hospital, at the hospital we'll have wipes, and it tells you like there needs to be a 2-minute wet time or a 3-minute wet time. So anything that you need to know about disinfecting, you can go to the CDC. They will have a list, and they will have the amount of time that it needs to stay wet for in order to actually be considered properly disinfected.
Huh.
That's actually when we get inspected in a hospital, the inspectors will say, oh, with this wipe, how long does it need to stay wet for?
7 minutes. Wrong.
Sometimes some of them are long. Some of them are not quite as long. But there are even like fantastic disinfectant, I think you're good in like 2 or 3 minutes, something like that. And then you wipe it up. Yeah. So and you can get that information from the CDC. The CDC has all kinds of information. Cleaning and disinfection for households, CDC. If you plug that into a Google search bar, then it will take you where you need to go. So you can check on and see if some of the stuff is not even EPA recommended, you know.
Can you put that site on the chat, please, Tiffany?
Sure.
Thank you.
I've got the CDC app on my phone.
Uh-huh. Well, I got it from the actual, not from an app. I got it from the CDC website itself. That's where I go for much anything. I don't really go anywhere else because I have to trust the source. So as far as I'm concerned, if it comes to things like infection control or diseases, I'm going to go to the CDC or the World Health Organization or Harvard or Johns Hopkins or, some kind of place that is credible. Let me see here. I'll just put in what you put in the search bar, okay?
I just posted it in there.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Thank you.
CDC.gov.
There it is.
Coronavirus /
Yeah.
Martin, man, those questions were coming in at the cyclic rate, man. Good job. Good job.
Yeah, it was hard because I was trying to consolidate some questions, and